A sports car speeds along a winding mountain laird.
A dark night begins.
A driver steps out of the car. Headlights cut through the dockcrest.
A silver-haired man appears. He looks out over the docks.
Smugglers discuss their payment of a new illegal drug called psychedelic moon.
A man expresses sudden confusion.
The silver-haired man approaches the smugglers who wonder if they should expect more company. One of the men stands and demands to know where the stranger came from.
After the smuggler asks for an invitation, the silver-haired man presses a gun to his head and asks if his weapon counts.
A sudden flash of lethal violence.
One smuggler lies dead while the other watches in shock.
The survivor desperately asks why this is happening. The silver-haired man looms over him and asks if he truly doesn't understand. A DJ looks on worriedly. A club is filled with violence. A man reveals monstrous fangs. A vampire's nature is revealed. Sharp fangs bared in hunger. The DJ calls out in the here. The spiked-haired vampire complains that she is killing the mood and demands more exciting music. He orders her to just blast something upbeat as a large man carries a limp body away. Humans are seen as prey. A heavy step echoes up. The vampire stalks across the floor. The vampire tells her that if she cannot manage the music, there is no reason for the others to hold back their hunger. Their insatiable hunger is highlighted.
He leans in close, his red eyes glowing as he threatens her.
A door is kicked open.
He grabs the DJ's hair. Even monsters have something to fear. A vampire is suddenly struck down. Chaos erupts in the club. The vampires turn to see a new arrival and mock his appearance. The silver-haired man stands in the doorway with his weapon case and asks if the vampires have had enough fun. He is a vampire hunter. The vampires challenge him for entering without an invitation and prepare to attack. The silver-haired man mocks them, expressing fake pity for their situation. He reveals he is tracking the traces of a parent named Jeggio and insults them for working with common gangsters. He wonders what the late Jeggio would think of such a pathetic mess. The dishonor of Jeggio's legacy. He wonders if the dead man would cry over their current state while the lead vampire listens. The spiked-haired vampire finally recognizes his visitor. He identifies the intruder as the silver-haired priest exiled from the Vatican. The vampires run eye close. The legendary demon hunter, Sylvester. The vampires charge as Sylvester declares he will use their blood to decorate the night. He mocks their lack of hospitality. Sylvester unleashes a devastating attack. He questions the lack of ancestry. A monstrous hunger is revealed. Sylvester carries out a lethal purge, regarding death as a sacred rite of return. He stands amongst the fallen, delivering a final benediction of ashes. Blood splatters against the silver-haired hunter's cold resolve. The moon watches over the scene. Sylvester dismisses the lead vampire, doubting the creature possesses any useful intelligence. He mocks the vampire for even considering the possibility of victory. The silver-haired man further insults him, labeling the vampire a useless half-breed. Enraged, the vampire charges forward while screaming for the hunter to be silent. A mechanical click echoes as a weapon ladders. Metal clashes with sparks flying as Sylvester easily parries the desperate assault. Lethal energy carves into the ground. The vampire's arm begins a grotesque mutation as the battle intensifies. Speed and violence blur together in a frantic exchange of blows. Sylvester observes the mutation with cold curiosity. The creature lashes out with newly formed massive claws. Sylvester remains calm, aiming his firearm directly at the threat. A blinding flash erupts as the hunter unleashes his power. His blue eyes gleam through a sudden spray of gore. Sylvester delivers a powerful blow that sends the monster reeling. The vampire stares back, battered and broken by the relentless pressure. A massive explosion rips through the center of the high-up. The creature is buried under the wreckage of its own lair. Sylvester turns away, criticizing his companion for failing to use sufficient restraint.
A man with a scarred face examines the aftermath among the bodies.
The official vampire hunter laments the state of the corpses, noting the lack of harvestable blood. Sylvester inquires about a missing contact while the scarred man explains he is the substitute. They confirm the conspiracy between the Jeggio party and the Sangdong faction.
The scarred man looks over the impressive scale of the vampire sanctuary. Sylvester orders him to stop wasting time and resume his duties.
Beneath the debris, a mutated claw twitches with lingering life.
A red eye snaps open as Sylvester notes the creature's return to consciousness. He swiftly aims his gun to finish the job.
Panicked, the wounded vampire leaps through the air to escape. Sylvester tracks the target with icy precision. A sudden splash of red marks the escape. The vampire flees into the shadows, leaking dark energy from its wounds. Sylvester watches the retreating monster with detached interest. The industrial complex stands quiet under the moonlight. The creature's trail of shadow fades into the night. The two hunters stand outside, regrouping after the raid. The scarred man remarks on the speed of the creature's departure. Sylvester delegates the cleanup, predicting the creature's imminent death due to its severe injuries. The scarred man laughs, taking the prediction as a harsh bit of humor. He accepts the responsibility of the cleanup with mock enthusiasm. Sylvester stands on the dock as the scarred man heads off to finish the job. Sylvester sighs, noting how the situation is becoming increasingly tangled. He reflects on the creature's loss of reason and explains the feral mutation unique to the Jegio lineage.
The moon hangs high above the dark landscape. Sylvester stands before the cold industrial docks. A dark realization settles over him.
A blinding flash of light erupts.
Biker gangs roar through the night. A police officer yells for the bikers to stop. The officer warns them to slow down immediately. Yoonjin laughs and taunts her pursuers wildbid. The high-speed chase blurs the highway. A somber warning overshadows the night. Segun remains intensely focused while riding.
A momentary pause shifts the story's focus.
The narrative prepares for a major shift.
Segun reflects on his previous peaceful life.
He remembers his family's quiet, detached home. His parents provided a very stable upbringing.
Segun recalls his brother and their dog.
A sharp memory pierces the silence.
Motorcyclists continue their frantic city race.
Segun admits he lacked ambition and talent.
His ordinary life suddenly shatters forever.
Yoonjin asks her companion how to lose their tail.
The red-haired man asks Yoonjin if she can truly lose the police while she panics about her earlier insults, and he tells her to hold on tight. Segun stays silent as sirens wail behind. Segun notes the danger of staying on track. Glaring headlights wash out the road ahead.
Segun accelerates and pulls away quickly.
Yoonjin screams, asking Segun where he's going. Segun leaps his bike into the barrier. His friends watch in complete wide-eyed shock. The city glows beneath his risky jump. A sudden, powerful whoosh sounds as Segun soars. He drifts through the dark night air. Segun closes his eyes in mid-flight peace. Sparks shower as the bike lands hard. He skids into a sharp controlled alt. Segun watches his friends from the distance. His friend shouts about Segun leaving as he remembers the past. He adjusts his hull in the quare. The engine's low hum slowly fades away. Speeding was his only form of rebellion. Night falls over the silent family house. Segun walks through the garage toward home. Segun notes the unusual silence from his dog and wonders if she is sleeping. Segun starts to greet his family before noticing a disgusting smell. Segun's eyes widen with a sudden, chilling dread. A wet splash sounds as his foot hits liquid. Segun looks down and realizes it is blood. The dark hallway reeks of absolute decay.
He stands frozen in the grisly scene.
The horror has finally reached his home. Segun's hand grips a metal pole tightly as a quick, resonant swoosh echoes. Segun frantically calls out for his parents and his brother while searching the dark ground. The monstrous shadow of a beast looms on the wall. Segun asks if anyone is around as a chilling silence fills the house. Glass shatters as a monstrous dog lunges at Segun, who barely manages to block the attack. Segun cries out in disbelief as he recognizes the beast as his own dog, Jean Dark. The mutated creature continues its savage assault while the boy struggles on the floor. Segun groans in pain, blood splattered across his face during the desperate struggle. Segun manages to swing his weapon, pushing back the transformed beast. Segun readies himself for another attack, his face twisted in a mixture of fear and grit. Blood stains the floor beneath Segun. Segun tries to reconcile the monster before him with his memories of Jeanne d'Arc. The beast leaps through the air, baring its fangs as it targets the boy again. Segun strikes a decisive blow against the creature's head with his metal pole. Blood sprays across the dock room. Segun stands paralyzed by shock, unable to believe he just killed his own dog. He desperately denies that the monster could have ever been his beloved pet.
Segun remembers his loyal golden dog.
The pole clatters to the floor. Segun spots the bodies of his parents lying in a pool of blood further down the hall. The sheer intensity of the horror causes Segun to retch and cry in agony. Segun gags as the reality of his family's slaughter fully sets in. He weeps for his parents and his dog, realizing the life he knew is gone. Segun asks what could have caused such a nightmare in his own home. He collapses beside the dead creature, mourning the loss of everything he loved. Segun's grief turns to fear as he senses that something is still lurking in the house. He decides that his current makeshift weapon is not enough to protect himself.
Segun remembers the hunting rifle his father kept in the study and resolves to find it.
He enters the study only to find his brother slumped against the shelves, lifeless.
Segun is devastated to see that the monster killed his brother as well. He places a trembling hand on his brother's shoulder, weeping over the final loss. Segun grips his brother's bloodied shoulder.
Segun apologizes and expresses his deep regret for not being there to save them.
He wishes he had returned home just a few moments earlier to change their fate. Segun picks up the shotgun and prepares it for use, his eyes hardening with intent. Segun vows to hunt down and kill every one of the monsters responsible for this. Segun walks into the Dalkome. Segun notices that the gun is still warm, suggesting it was used very recently. He deduces his brother fought back and wonders why the killer left the weapon behind.
Segun wonders if the intruder left the gun because they consider him a minor threat.
Segun gazes toward the open door. Segun reflects on how he failed to realize the true nature of the threat. He ascends the dark staircase with the shotgun ready, stepping through the wreckage. Segun considers that no ordinary person could have anticipated such an impossible horror.
He admits that predicting such a nightmare would have been nearly impossible for anyone.
Segun reacts with shock and fear.
A monstrous claw grips Gawal.
Segun aims his weapon as a metallic click sounds, signaling he is ready to fire. Segun understands that the tragedy was orchestrated from the very beginning. A terrifying monster confronts him.
Second stands blood-spattered, gripping his weapon. A monstrous horror with red eyes looms.
A nightmare beyond common sense begins.
The red moon reflects in dark war.
Total shock leaves the mind speechless.
Every emotion vanishes in the terror. Segun aims into the oppressive darkness.
The mind completely shuts down now.
Segun recalls meeting a white-haired celebrity.
He remembers laughing with his biker friends. Segun rides his bike toward sunset. He remains focused on the road.
A massive monster towers over him.
Segun weeps through the blaze spray. The creature lunges with a roar. Segun reacts with sudden, sharp alarm. He readies the shotgun on the stairs.
A blinding muzzle flash fills the room.
The beast strikes with overwhelming force. Segun is hurled down the staircase.
He tumbles violently across the floor. The weapon slides across the boards.
Segun grimaces in intense, sharp pain.
Segun lies on the ground with his fingers dug into the floor as he notes that he thinks his shoulders dislocated.
He struggles to reach his weapon.
Segun regrets not choosing to flee.
Desperation drives him toward the shotgun.
The monster displays its jagged teeth.
It stands tall over its prey.
Cold sweat drips in the silence.
Droplets fall onto the dark floor.
Segun sits on the floor as the monster's claws reach for him, and he considers how he could have called the police.
He thinks about how he could have asked those around him for help while the beast approaches.
Reality shatters every logical thought.
Segun grips the weapon and notes that none of those rational thoughts actually crossed his mind.
Segun sits against the wall with his gun and admits he does not know why he is there.
Tears stream down his bloodied face.
Segun admits that the only thought in his head was the need to kill the creature.
Glowing red eyes fixate on him.
The monster attacks with savage intent.
Sharp claws rip through the air.
Segun fires directly at the sweat. The blast erupts into the creature.
The monster reels from the impact.
The blood-slicked weapon falls away.
Segun lies broken and severely wounded.
The creature looms over the falling boy.
A sudden, resonant tap sounds as the monster's claws grip Segun's head.
The beast lifts him by the head.
Segun laments that he was unable to even get proper revenge. Segun mourns his family and dog.
A heavy boom sounds as Segun strikes the creature.
The monster looms over the fallen boy.
A loud crunch sounds as polished shoes step onto broken glass.
The long-haired man notes that the creature finally achieved its goal.
A gloved hand grips a handgun tightly. Rapid bangs echo as several bullets pierce the beast.
A final, sharp crack of gunfire sounds.
Segun weeps amidst the bloody pomage.
The wounded monster stands over Segun.
A shrill, piercing screech wings out.
The beast cries out in agonizing pain.
A brilliant blue cross slashes the dark. The long-haired man tells Segun that if he ended to leave, he should have done so quietly on his own.
Segun lies broken, his severed arm nearby.
A soft hiss sounds as the man stands amidst the blat.
Segun lies unmoving on the floor.
The long-haired man observes the tragic scene. The man states that there is no one righteous, not even one.
He notes that every person on earth is a sinner.
The man tells Segun to enter. The man's glowing blue eyes narrow. The bloody shotgun lies abandoned on the floor. Segun asks to ask one thing as a sharp blade is held to his throat while he breathes heavily.
The long-haired man asks Segun if the gun belongs to him.
Darkness begins to swallow Segun's fading vision.
The long-haired man remains stoically silent.
Segun lies unconscious in the pool of blood.
The man notes that Segun is too valuable to kill off. Segun reflects on his previous carefree life.
A voice calls out to the student through a shattered window. Segun admits he wanted to escape his ordinary life as a police officer asks if he is okay.
An officer signals for help upon finding a survivor.
Segun weeps for his mother and father.
He cries out for his brother in despair.
Emergency responders swarm the horrific con scene.
A shattered frame displays the title. A news anchor reports on the tragedy that shocked the nation.
The news coverage questions if the family was truly mauled by their dog. Reporters highlight that the surviving son was found holding a hunting rifle.
Testimony confirms that the boy fired the weapon. Peers speculate on whether jealousy drove Segun to violence while noting his reputation on a bike.
A friend insists he was not a criminal.
They admit there was something off about him. Camera flashes illuminate the dark scene.
Segun stands silently in a shadowed hoodie.
Reporters demand an explanation for the gunfire, while Segun feels they are acting as if he owes them answers.
They ask why he would kill his family.
Segun feels their judgmental gaze searching for hidden secrets.
A reporter commands Segun to say something for the audience.
A terrifying creature with red eyes looms.
An ominous voice questions if this horror is what Segun truly desired.
Segun stares in horror with blood-red eyes.
The voice reminds him of his casual bike ride during the family slaughter.
A horde of monsters surrounds Segun as the voice questions his right to anger.
Segun cries out in desperate, agonizing denial.
Dark shadows drip down the scene.
Segun runs through an alleyway, screaming that he never wanted any of this.
Segun flees through the empty city streets. Tears and sweat pour down the skates. Segun recalls the police arriving and finding the monster's body missing. He remembers his shock at finding his severed arm perfectly reattached.
Segun stares at his blood-stained palm.
He reflects on how it felt like the nightmare never happened.
An oppressive darkness covers everything.
Segun is haunted by the memories of his family and the beast.
The red-eyed monster looms in his mind.
He recalls a blurry vision of a mysterious man.
Segun sits alone in the hallway by a police chalk-apan.
He realizes the world would never believe the truth of what happened.
Segun walks through a crowded city district.
He stands in a dark room filled with painful memories.
Segun opens a garage door in silence.
He approaches his motorcycle in the shadows.
Segun prepares for a late-night rack.
A loud vroom echoes as the bike speeds down the highway.
Segun brings his bike to a stop. Segun removes his helmet with his tie.
The glowing city lights spread across the horizon. Segun senses something behind him and chimes. Second gasps in sudden shock.
The long-haired man stands calmly on a nearby roof.
The man stares back with cool indifference. The long-haired man walks toward the boy.
Segun rushes forward in a frantic blur.
Second demands to know if the man is the one he saw before. He points accusingly, certain the man was at his family's home.
Segun yells that the man was there during the attack, but the man tells him to be quiet.
The long-haired man calls Segun a walking nuisance.
He commands the boy not to scream in the middle of the night. Segun demands to know the man's true identity.
Segun asks about the monster, prompting the man to suggest he used his imagination, leading Segun to guess he is an exorcist.
The man says the boy is close to the truth, and Segun begins to piece the horror together.
Segun asks if the monster he fought was actually a vampire. The man confirms the boy's guess, leaving Segun speechless with a stunned gasp.
The long-haired man decides to get straight to the point of his visit.
He asks Segun if he accidentally consumed any of the vampire's blood. Segun admits blood splattered on him and asks if he is turning into a monster. The man explains that drinking the blood would indeed trigger a transformation. Segun wonders if that explains his arm, but the man reveals he was the one who fixed it.
The white-haired man questions if Segun's experiences fit his logic.
Segun asks if many vampires still exist.
The man dismisses his curiosity and concerns.
He orders the boy toward normality. Segun screams that he lost everything.
He rejects the idea of normal life. A sudden, firm tap sounds as Segun is seized.
A sharp, quick hush sounds as he is hoisted up.
Sylvie mocks the boy's sense of self-importance.
He tells the boy to stop whining.
Segun asks what he do now.
A sharp, dry snap sounds as Segun demands answers.
Segun demands justice for a slaughtered Jali.
Sylvie bluntly rejects the boy's emotional plea.
Segun vows revenge despite the mortal cost.
Sylvie watches the boy's display of grief.
Glowing blue eyes narrow with cool intensity. The pale moon hangs in the night. He deems the boy a total nuisance.
A scarred man and woman wait patiently.
Sylvie enters the shop with his best. Sylvie corrects his name while being locked. The scarred man identifies the young survivor.
Sylvie reports that the target left Korea.
A heavy, dull thud sounds as he sits.
The scarred man questions the boy's presence.
He deems Segun far too weak.
Sylvie refers to a figure called Baptist. He asks if Segun's resolve remained her. The boy stands silently amidst the hunters.
Memories of the bloody encounter resurface vividly.
Sylvie presents a mysterious, glowing combat drug.
He explains humans require drugs for strength.
He details the drug's unnatural physical enhancements.
He warns of the body's eventual collapse.
Overuse leads to a horrific, monstrous end. He warns of one final, fatal mistake.
He offers a final, chillingly clear warning. There is no return to reality.
A sudden, sharp click sounds as Segun grabs it.
A firm, tight snap sounds as Sylvie stops him. A muscular man laughs up a scene.
Vampire hunter Song Duk-yeon approves of his edge.
Sylvie leaves the kid in Duk-yeon's care. Duk-yeon welcomes him to the Mad Moon.
Sylvie orders a ship to Mexico immediately.
A bright metallic clink sounds as Segun gasps. Segun is stunned by the sudden move.
He chases the departing car in panic.
Sylvie finds the boy's reaction absolutely unbelievable.
Sylvie asks if the boy can be made useful, and Duk-yeon says he can at least try.
Segun resolves to save the game.
A radiant moon glows against a dark, cosmic backdrop. Sylvie's glowing blue eyes stare forward with calm intensity.
A message welcomes Han Segun to the world of the Mad Moon.
A line of black luxury cars sits parked along a city sidewalk. A suited man reaches out as a sudden, sharp click sounds while opening the car door. Text identifies the imposing man as Chon Young-hoo, deputy boss of the Songdong faction.
A subordinate rushes forward, shouting a greeting to the boss while dozens of suited men bow in respect.
Young-hoo commands his subordinate to call him sir from now on. Young-hoo claims they are running a legitimate operation now, prompting a nervous agreement from the subordinate.
Young-hoo asks why he was called here, noting that he has been quite busy.
The subordinate nervously prepares to explain the situation.
Inside a purple-lit club, several men lie defeated on the floor as a lone figure stands in the center.
The blue-haired boy stands with his back to the viewer, looking out over the club.
Young-hoo angrily asked if he was summoned just because of the boy. Young-hoo scolds the subordinate for how the establishment is being managed while the man bows an apology. Young-hoo questions if the young brat is the one who wrecked the hideout and notes he was told he was a foreigner. Young-hoo's narrow eyes focus on the intruder.
Young-hoo asks if the boy is done with his tantrum, but the boy looks back with confusion.
Young-hoo states he has never seen a punk like him and lectures that in a free country, people use words to get what they want.
Young-hoo asks what the boy plans to do about the mess since they need to open for business soon.
Segun repeats the word punk with a cool, detached expression. Segun explains that he paid a deposit fairly and is only here because the goods were never delivered.
Young-hoo repeats the word goods in confusion while his subordinate looks on nervously.
Segun mocks the trashy organization for losing track of 5 million won paid to a goon without the boss's knowledge.
Young-hoo demands to know what goods the boy's talking about.
Segun specifies that he wants a Dragunov, a Tokarev, and an AK-47.
Young-hoo laughs at the boy's audacity, questioning if he thinks those weapons only cost 5 million won.
Young-hoo asks if the boy even knows what he is talking about, to which Segun simply asks which part.
Segun reveals he knows the faction sells Russian and Chinese weapons.
Young-hoo remains stoically silent in response to the boy's knowledge.
Young-hoo orders his men to call the police and hand the boy over as he walks away.
Segun asks if he is sure about that, causing Young-hoo to pause and pinch the bridge of his nose.
Segun threatens to inform the police that the faction has begun dealing drugs in addition to weapons. Infuriated, Young-hoo orders his men to fillet the brat immediately. Two henchmen brandishing a baton and a knife close in on Segun as he prepares to fight. A series of sharp, dry pops sound as Segun cracks his knuckles and glares at his opponents. A shattered frame displays the title. Segun ducks low as a sudden heavy whoosh sounds from a henchman's missed strike.
Segun moves in a blur of speed, dodging multiple attackers with ease.
A henchman swings a weapon but only hits the air as Segun slips away. A sudden, loud crack sounds as Segun delivers a devastating punch to a henchman's face.
Segun ducks under a high swing as the combat intensifies.
A heavy, dull thud sounds as Segun slams a henchman into the floor.
Young-hoo watches in disbelief as the boy easily defeats his men.
Segun begins walking up the stairs toward the boss.
Young-hoo asks the boy exactly what it is he wants.
Segun stands directly in front of the deputy boss.
Segun commands him to bring the Dragunov, the Tokarev, and the AK-47.
Young-hoo agrees to the deal but explains they don't carry weapons on hand.
Young-hoo suggests setting a time and place, and Segun immediately dictates tomorrow at 8 p.m.
Segun walks away after specifying the deal will take place at the Yoido Hyungsin Securities parking lot. Young-hoo fumes over the blood-soaked brat as his subordinate asks if he is all right.
A sudden sharp crack sounds as Young-hoo slaps his subordinate for calling him boss instead of sir.
Young-hoo grimaces, realizing there is no other way to handle the situation. The scene shifts to a secluded warehouse as the sun begins to set.
Inside the facility, rows of blood bags sit on medical equipment.
Old man complains about the low quality of the blood they've been receiving lately.
Song Duk-yeon notes that most of the trouble lately stems from the Sangdong faction.
Dyakyeon questions the number of half-breeds, prompting Joe to defend the reliability of his testing machine.
Dyokyeon dismisses the tension, remarking that it's impossible to joke with the older generation anymore.
Joe Oldman, a dealer in vampire blood, tells him to stop talking and take the payment back.
Ju mentions the slaughter of Jungjin's family and asks if the boy has been in contact.
A sudden, sharp tisk sounds as Dyokyeon dismisses the boy's current status and actions.
Dyokyeon tells the old man he is leaving as he prepares to depart.
Dyokyeon walks out of the warehouse into the gym evening light.
Dyokyeon stops in surprise as he notices someone waiting for him. Han Se-gun waits beside his motorcycle, and Dyokyeon acknowledges the boy's return.
Dyokyeon asks if Se-gun went looking for a fight, but the boy refuses to meet his gaze while denying it.
A sudden sharp click sounds as Dukyeon opens his car trunk while Segun follows behind.
Youngin bluntly tells the boy he is still far too weak and needs to focus on training.
The Yunyan warns him not to cause trouble with the wrong people, but Segun insists he won't.
A sudden, firm thud sounds as Dukyeon stops and prepares to offer a stern warning.
Dyokyeon looks back with cold intensity and commands the boy to kill.
He explains that if killing becomes necessary, there is no more room for hesitation or thought.
A sudden, sharp snap sounds as Dukyeon seizes Segun in a headlock, catching him in a lie. A sharp, quick gasp sounds as Dyokyeon forces the boy toward the gym for a sparring session.
A sudden, loud yell echoes against the warehouse as Segun protests the sudden training.
The city skyline glows under a crescent moon as the night deepens.
In a dark parking garage, several suited guards stand watch around a luxury vehicle.
Inside a car, one man questions the necessity of mobilizing so many men for one kid.
A man in the shadows speaks of their continued loyalty to the big bosses, even as vampires.
Another man recalls a past slaughter and complains about getting blamed for being vampires.
As the man complains about the fuss for one brat, a sudden loud thud sounds from above.
A sudden, deafening crash sounds as a red fire extinguisher smashes through the car's glass.
A massive explosion of blue light and shattered glass consumes the vehicle.
Segun stands victoriously amidst the wreckage and defeated guards in the garage.
A man steps into the light, noting that Segun has already neutralized the outside guards.
Two vampires with glowing red eyes mockingly ask if the blood-soaked brat has had his fun.
One vampire grins maliciously, stating he cannot provide the weapons the boy requested.
Segun smiles back and reveals he didn't expect them to, leaving the vampire confused.
Segun leans back on his motorcycle, asking what he could possibly gain from low-level punks. Segun suggests a more profitable alternative to the deal they had planned.
Segun's fangs flash as he anticipates a nice profit from harvesting their own teeth.
The scene shifts to an earlier talk about the vampire responsible for his family's death.
During a sparring match, Segun asks if vampires are actually working with criminal gangs.
A sudden, heavy whoosh sounds as Segun launches a high kick during the training session.
DeYoung counters with a powerful punch that barely misses the Ajin boy.
A sudden, loud crack sounds as Segun lands a direct hit on his mentor's midsection. Deokyeon tells the green-haired boy his current performance is not bad.
Deokyeon asks if the boy knows why Sylvester is famously called a true demon hunter. Segun wonders why the man is bringing up the topic so suddenly.
Deokyeon explains that Sylvester is known for killing the true demon Gyokyo.
Segun charges toward his mentor with focused determination. Deokyeon explains that true demons are powerful vampires whose regeneration can even outpace the effects of sunlight.
The mentor narrowly avoids a quick strike from the boy. A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Deokyeon blocks a blow.
Segun continues his assault with intense focus.
A sudden, heavy whoosh sounds as the boy launches a kick.
A sharp, quick gasp sounds as the boy is knocked back.
Deokyeon notes that after Jokyo's death, his clan collapsed and its remnants joined the Songdong faction. Deokyeon clarifies that the real goal is to find any remaining trace of Chukyo.
Segun catches his breath while resting on the floor of the ring.
Deokyeon explains the remnants want to inherit Jokyo's power to regain their former status.
Segun is startled by a sudden, aggressive move from his mentor.
A sudden, heavy whoosh sounds as Deokyeon delivers a finishing strike.
Deokyeon reminds him that even though the clan fell, their esquire is still alive.
Deokyeon warns Han Segun not to charge into a fight carelessly. He explains the dire consequences of ending up on their hit list.
He finishes by saying every moment of his life would become hell.
In the parking garage, a vampire lunges toward Segun on his motorcycle.
Segun ducks low as the predator flies over him.
Segun drifts his motorcycle in a wide circle around his foe. A suited man with red eyes stands by a car and asks if the vampire needs a hand. The attacking vampire insists he has the situation handled and tells his boss to stay put. The boss questions if his subordinate is attempting to give him an order.
The vampire's face turns monstrous as he begs his boss to wait just a bit longer.
Segun grips a blade while preparing for his next pass on the bike.
A sudden wet spray sounds as Segun strikes the vampire.
Segun races away from the initial bloody exchange. The motorcycle tires screech as the boy maneuvers through the dark garage.
The vampire grins maliciously, noting that the boy is using a predictable pattern.
The vampire asks who the boy thinks he is fooling with such moves.
The monster lunges forward with clawed hands and bared fangs.
Segun's glowing blue eye remains calm and analytical.
A sudden heavy whoosh sounds as Segun swings his sword.
The motorcycle tire screeches as Segun makes a sharp turn.
Segun watches over his shoulder as the vampire closes in.
Segun leaps from the bike as it skids along the floor.
The vampire screams that he saw this entire move coming.
A sudden, sharp slash sounds as blood gushes from the vampire's head.
Segun stands amidst a cloud of blood and debris after the strike.
A sudden, firm thud sounds as the boy steadies himself. Segun stands over the wounded vampire as the bike continues to skid.
Segun complains about the cheap stainless steel sword snapping so easily during the fight.
The vampire with a blade stuck in his head asks the blood-soaked brat if he has had his fun.
A sudden, loud crack sounds as Segun punches the hilt of the broken sword.
The vampire falls to his knees as a final spray of blood erupts. A subordinate gasps in shock and disbelief at the sight of his fallen boss.
The bearded man with red eyes and the white jacket asks if he was told to stay still.
Segun looks back with a cold smirk and expresses his approval.
A sudden, sharp slide sounds as Segun explains he spent $5 million on his outfit while the vampire bleeds. Segun raises a massive armored gauntlet, noting he must earn back his investment for the math to work.
The fallen vampire's red eyes widen in a sudden, sharp gasp of shock.
Segun leans in close, asking his opponent for his thoughts on the mire.
A white silhouette shows Segun delivering a powerful, high-impact kick.
A sudden, deafening crash sounds as blood and blue energy explode through the dark space.
The vampire boss in the white jacket watches the brutal display with intense focus.
A sudden sharp pop sounds as Segun stands over his mangled foe while Dyakyan watches in the distance.
A close-up shows Segun's cold, blood-splattered smile following the victory.
The vampire boss mocks Segun's mechanical glove as outdated while the boy remains silent.
The boss notes that Segun clearly expected them and questions why he's going to such extremes. Segun grips his broken blade and asks if he needs to state his intentions more clearly. A sudden wet drip sounds as blood falls from the jagged edge of the sword.
Segun strikes a determined pose and declares that he is coming for the monster's head. Segun commands the vampire to stop the chatter and begin the fight.
A sudden sharp laugh sounds as the vampire boss claims he has already analyzed the boy's fighting style. The vampire notes the broken sword and analyzed glove while a sudden sharp clang sounds from an impact. A sudden loud crack sounds as the boss blocks a strike that erupts with blue energy. The vampire's feet skid across the pavement from the sheer force of the collision.
A sudden sharp roar sounds as the monster asks if the boy has finally become desperate. A sudden sharp snap sounds as Segun draws a hidden handgun on his startled opponent. A sudden deafening boom sounds as Segun fires a point-blank shot into the vampire's skull.
The stunned vampire wonders when the boy managed to draw the weapon as he begins to fall.
A sudden heavy thud sounds as blood sprays from the boss's terminal head wound. Segun stands over the dying vampire, reminding him that he promised to take his head.
A sudden sharp hiss sounds as Segun plunges a syringe into the vampire's neck to harvest his blood.
A sudden bright flash sounds as the corpse is consumed by blue flames during the harvesting process.
Segun winces in pain, letting out a sharp, quick gasp while clutching his bloodied shoulder.
Segun prepares to inject the harvested essence, noting that the desperate measure is necessary.
A sudden sharp scream sounds as Segun's face distorts and his fangs grow from the surge of power.
Segun hunches over on the garage floor, letting out a low, pained groan.
The parking garage stands empty and silent in the aftermath of the violent encounter.
Segun rides his motorcycle toward the exit of the dark underground facility.
Dyakyan waits by a car and asks the boy if he is finally coming out. Dyakyan mockingly asked if the boy feels better after his aggressive outburst.
Segun asks how he was found, and Dyakyan explains the simple use of GPS tracking.
Dyakyan observes that the boy hasn't been acting like himself recently.
Segun looks back over his shoulder, asking the older man what he means.
Dio-yun points out that Segun has been riding his motorcycle with uncharacteristic recklessness. He recalls how the boy once treated the bike as a treasure while Segun remained silent.
Segun dismisses the observation as none of the man's business.
A sudden heavy roar sounds as Segun speeds away on his motorcycle.
Dyakyan exhales a cloud of smoke while silently watching the boy disappear into the night.
The scene shifts to the dark exterior of city buildings under the night sky.
Inside an office, a mob boss yells about his 6 missing men while his subordinate apologizes.
The boss sarcastically calls the failure fantastic while loosening his tie in a fit of rage.
Looking over the messy office, the boss curses the boy for being a vampire hunter.
Sitting on a sofa, the boss notes that things are getting messy after ignoring the hunters for too long.
Sangdong faction boss Jung Sangdong sits with a golf club while lamenting how his organization has been made to look like fools.
A subordinate with a mustache asks if they should reach out to the Red Knight gang for assistance.
Zhong Sengdong reacts with explosive rage, swinging his club and cursing the man for suggesting such a humiliating move.
A sudden, sharp crack sounds as the boss strikes his subordinate, sending a spray of blood through the air. The mustache man cringes on the floor while the boss asks for confirmation about the hunter being a minor on a motorcycle.
Zhong Sengdong puts on his coat and orders his men to find the boy regardless of the cost. The boss stares coldly while commanding his men to kill the boy the moment he is found.
Zhong Sengdong clarifies that he wants the boy's head cut off clean.
The scene shifts to the quiet blue-tinted streets of the city under the night sky.
Outside a convenience store, Han Segun sits at a table while Dyakyan walks out of the shop.
Dyakyan tosses a can to the green-haired boy while telling him to take it.
Sitting under the patio umbrella, Segun recalls Dyakyan mentioning the Sangdong faction's ties to the Red Knight gang.
Segun asks why they are leaving the faction alone and questions if the mentor is afraid of organized crime. The boy leans forward and asks if the real reason is simply because there is no money to be made.
Dyakyan takes a long drink from his can and notes that the boy is quick to catch on.
Segun stands up and shouts that those monsters deserve to die regardless of whether it is profitable.
The green-haired boy glares with intense hatred while comparing the vampires to a spreading disease.
Dyakyan counters the outburst by asking if it is easier to cut down a small tree than a giant one.
The mentor asks a cutting question, wondering if the boy's attitude is because he has never lost anything precious.
Dyakyan grips his can tightly as he prepares to respond to the boy's ideals.
The older man looks at Segun and asks if he truly believes he is the one to judge who deserves to die.
Dyakyan scoffs and tells the boy not to make him laugh with such talk.
The mentor states firmly that he wouldn't kill even a mosquito for ideology, only for profit.
Dyakyan looks the boy in the eye and asks if he injected himself with vampire blood. He reminds Segun that blood from the Red Knight vampires is known to cause easy mutations.
The older hunter sighs and expresses regret for agreeing to deal with a true vampire hunter.
Deokyeon orders Sagan to pack his things and leave today to avoid the Red Knight gang's attention.
Sagun accepts the dismissal with a cold, resigned look as he prepares to move on.
As the boy walks away, Deokyeon thinks that anyone would lose their mind knowing their family's killers were still out there.
The mentor reflects on the madness that drives a person in such a desperate situation.
Deokyeon looks down somberly, thinking that Old Man Ju should never have shared Jungjin's story.
The mentor calls out to Han Sagun one last time as the boy walks through the dark street. Deokyeon mentions that he has provided some equipment for the boy's journey.
He reveals several bags in a vehicle trunk, noting he included blades and 500 rounds of ammunition.
Deokyeon warns that the old equipment might explode and tells the boy to be careful.
Han Sagun pauses and gives his mentor a deep, respectful bow while thanking him for everything.
Deokyeon looks away with a neutral expression, hiding his true feelings about the boy's departure.
A memory shows Deokyeon placing a hand on a younger Sagun's head while telling him never to become a vampire.
Back in the present, Deokyeon warns that he will hunt Sagun down without mercy if he ever turns. He makes it clear that he won't go easy on the boy just because he was the one who raised him.
A sudden, bright flash sounds as the motorcycle roars to life and speeds away. Han Sagun leans into the turn as he races his motorcycle through the urban night.
The boy's face remains stoic and determined as he rides toward his next destination. Under the glow of a full moon, Sagan speeds down the center of a quiet city road.
Narration notes that the beauty of the moon that night was enough to bring one to tears.
The scene shifts to a group of low-level punks huddling around a fire in a metal barrel.
A man in a white suit, Chan Young-hoo, introduces himself as being from Sangdong Credit Loans.
The red-haired punk and his girlfriend look toward the visitor with bored indifference.
Chun Young-hoo stands before the group with a calm but firm presence.
The red-haired punk smiles mockingly and tells the man he has no business with people like him.
Jung Sang-dong pinches the bridge of his nose, lamenting how he was attempting to be polite about the current situation.
A fanged vampire stands with his boss, questioning why the youth of today are so utterly hopeless.
A sudden, crackling roar sounds as bright orange flames consume the contents of a metal barrel.
A group of low-level punks lets out a collective groan of pain as they huddle together.
The red-eyed vampire subordinate brutally pins the red-haired punk to the ground, drawing blood.
A woman watches the violence in horror, covering her face as she lets out a terrified scream.
Jung Sang-dong warns the victim not to twist his hands too far, as he still needs them to steer.
The boss stares down at his prey, reminding the boy that he is supposed to be a biker.
The bloodied red-haired punk desperately agrees to follow orders, begging for the violence to stop.
Jung Sang-dong looks on with a cold, mocking smile at the boy's complete submission.
The boss stands with his arms crossed and commands his subordinate to bring something over to them.
Jung Sang-dong yells at the other man to grab the money bag from the trunk of the car.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as a bag of cash is thrown onto the blood-stained pavement.
He tells the punk to use the money to lure the target with a brand new motorcycle.
Jung Sang-dong grits his teeth in rage, demanding that the green-haired brat be dragged before him.
The battered boy nods his head in weak agreement, signaling that he understands the mission.
A sudden, sharp roar sounds as the vampire lets out a terrifying warning shot right above the boy.
Jung Sang-dong warns his subordinate to stay away from the neck to keep the victim alive. The boss smiles wickedly, noting that he cannot have his pawn dying before the real game starts.
The red-haired boy stares in silent, wide-eyed terror as he processes his grim reality.
A sudden, low hum sounds as Sagun walks through the quiet streets under a deepening purple sky.
Jung Sang-dong exhales a cloud of smoke, remarking that fools only become more foolish as night approaches. The vampire stands over his victim and mocks the uselessness of crosses or garlic against his kind.
Inside a brightly lit cafe, a dark-haired woman looks back and notes that they are closed for the day.
Her eyes widen in surprise as she recognizes Han Sagun standing in the doorway.
She notes he has grown much in 4 months, while Sagun attributes his height to growth hormone shots.
The woman smiles warmly while asking the green-haired boy how he is finding life on his own. Sagan looks down somberly and realizes that she was aware of his living situation all along.
She reveals she is Sylvie's representative in Korea and receives regular reports on his progress.
Her expression turns serious as she guesses that he isn't there just for a social visit. Sagun looks away and mentions that he heard of a tool used for detecting vampires.
The woman places a necklace with a jagged red crystal, a bloodstone pendulum, onto the counter.
She explains that the device has the ability to sense any vampires in the immediate vicinity.
Sagun stares at the artifact and immediately offers to purchase it from her.
The dark-haired woman crosses her arms and advises the boy to be more careful with his money.
She offers him a crossbow loaded with silver corals as a potential upgrade for his arsenal. Sagun looks down at the counter, admitting that he lacks anything that could be considered a real weapon. The woman asks if the reason for his visit is that Old Man Ju refused to sell him psychedelic moon.
A sudden, sharp slam sounds as Sagan grips the table, noting his age makes the dealer uncomfortable.
She looks around her cafe and remarks that Old Man Ju's reliability is exactly why he follows rules. The woman suddenly has an idea, pointing a finger upward as she recalls something in her inventory. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as she searches under the counter for some leftover VT13.
She peers over the edge of the counter and asks if he is still interested in taking it. She holds out a small vial glowing with a bright blue light, calling it their little secret. Segun reaches out to take the precious serum while beginning to offer his thanks.
The woman stops him with a smile, reminding him that her shop does not accept credit cards.
A sudden, awkward silence sounds as Segun realizes he forgot to bring the necessary cash.
Segun stands alone by a metal railing at sunset, his motorcycle parked nearby on the street.
The green-haired boy stares off into the orange horizon with a heavy, contemplative expression.
A long-haired man with blue eyes appears in a vision, asking if Segun has consumed vampire blood.
The pale-haired man tells his listener to stop complaining about their situation.
He notes that many people suffer through similar misfortunes and hardships. A cold moon hangs in a dark sky. The blue-eyed figure stares out with a cold and detached expression. A system message welcomes Han Segun into the world of the Mad Moon.
A year passes as Segun waits in solitude for an eventual return.
The green-haired boy turns as a group suddenly calls out of name.
A group of bikers surround Segun, surprised to have finally found their target.
The gang members comment on how drastically Segun has changed over the year. Sunlight reflects off the infrastructure of a nearby building rooftop. A blonde woman in the group marvels at the boy's significant growth. Segun stares at her coldly and asks for her identity. Zhang Yongjin laughs and notes that Segun is as rude as ever. The red-haired punk moves closer, visibly angry as he mentions their search. He leans in close and curses at the boy for the trouble.
Segun looks back stoically and identifies his former acquaintance as Zhang Yongjin.
The green-haired boy glares and asks if the man is seeking death. The bikers recoil in fear at the boy's sudden, terrifying intensity.
A sudden low hum sounds as the crystal on Segun's neck begins glowing.
Segun realizes with shock that a vampire is active while the sun is out. He reflects on the rare ability of high-ranking vampires to resist the sunlight.
The boy realizes he is dealing with the true rulers of the vampire kind.
Segun notices fresh bloodstains on the sleeve of the red-haired punk. He suspects a bite but knows that mutations are not always guaranteed. The necklace's reaction confirms that the punk is currently in the process of turning. Segun asks if the group is still working with the Sandong faction. Yongjin confirms the affiliation and notes that Segun's guess saves them some time.
The boy looks at him with pity and asks about their payout.
Yongjin reveals a bounty of 8 million won for capturing Segun and bringing him in.
He declares that his gang intends to collect the full reward today.
Segun notes that he would kill them if there weren't so many witnesses. The boy mocks the small reward being split among such a large group.
Yongjin snaps in a rage and grabs the boy by his kogeng.
Segun demands that the man act like a real biker instead of a thug.
The red-haired leader stares in stunned silence at the boy's calm demeanor.
A sudden, sharp roar sounds as the boy's motorcycle engine kicks into life.
Multiple engines rev together as the group prepares for a high-speed chase. A biker explains the rules of a cannonball race toward the expressway entrance. Yongjin smiles and mentions how long it has been since they rode together. He reflects that they might have been friends if Segun were less difficult. The red-haired man tells the boy to enjoy his final look at the sunset.
A man signals the start of a race meant to end Segun's life.
Yongjin dismisses the boy's confidence as he prepares to accelerate away. A raised arm signals the start of the high-stakes biker duel. A sudden, quick thud sounds as a crushed can hits the pavement.
A sudden, deafening roar sounds as the two riders blast forward in unison.
The entire gang follows behind as the race moves on to the highway. Segun performs a dangerous wheelie as he begins to gain incredible speed.
Yongjin is caught off guard as they approach a massive cargo truck.
The two bikers weave dangerously between cars at high speed to avoid a collision.
Zhang Yongjin laughs mockingly, asking if Segun hasn't ridden a bike in a year because he is so slow, declaring that the boy is dead.
Yongjin shouts to see if Segun is listening, while the green-haired boy observes that the punk is still human despite the transformation process.
A scarred, bearded man in a vision advises that if a person reaches the point where killing is necessary, they should do it without hesitation. Segun's gaze hardens as he considers the grim necessity of having to kill.
A sudden, sharp roar sounds as Segun veers off course, prompting Yongjin to yell out and ask where he's going. A sudden, sharp roar sounds as the red-haired leader pushes his bike to keep pace with his target.
The other bikers watch in confusion, wondering what has suddenly come over the two lead riders. A dark-haired man on the phone asks if they are currently in pursuit under the glowing orange sky. Chen Young-hoo walks through a warehouse, calling it a race rather than a chase, while his contact questions the absurdity of the situation. The boss screams into his phone, calling the bikers lunatics and idiots for trying to have a showdown at such a critical time. A narration warns that the current circumstances are far more serious than anyone realizes. Young-hoo declares he is heading out immediately, ordering his men to keep Segun from escaping before hearing a hesitant response. The boss's face contorts in rage and shock as he hears that they have lost track of the boy.
A lone crane silhouettes a crimson sky.
A sudden, sharp roar sounds as a motorcycle speeds into a desolate construction site.
Segun stands alone in the shadows, prompting Youngjin to call out his name from behind. The red bike comes to a stop with a bright flash of its headlight.
Youngjin yells at the boy, accusing him of trying to run away in the middle of their race.
The red-haired man mocks Segan for tucking his tail between his legs, calling him a coward compared to how he was a year ago.
Segan stares in heavy, cold silence.
A sudden, sharp thud sounds as a projectile strikes Youngjin's neck, catching him completely off guard.
Blood spray covers the boy's hand as he desperately clutches his throat in shock.
Youngjin lets out a choked cry of pain as he collapses off his motorcycle. A sudden low thud sounds as the green-haired boy approaches his fallen former acquaintance. Youngjin lies in a pool of blood, tears streaming down his face as he laments the time that has passed.
Segan stands over his victim and coldly remarks that the biker could have simply ignored him for the rest of his life.
The red-haired boy cries in agony.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Segun uses a knife to slit open a plastic blood bag. Segun holds the bag over the dying boy's mouth and commands him to drink the contents. A sudden, wet gulp sounds repeatedly as the blood flows down the punk's throat.
Youngjin notes with bewilderment that his pain has suddenly vanished as the wound in his neck begins to close.
The red-haired boy gasps, feeling a strange surge of overwhelming strength flooding through his entire body.
Youngjin's face turns monstrous as he notes a delicious scent, letting out a sudden, terrifying roar as he lunges at his benefactor.
A sudden, crackling roar sounds in blue as a massive burst of spiritual energy consumes the new vampire. Youngjin screams in agony, cursing Segun as the blue flames begin to incinerate his flesh.
A sudden sharp hiss sounds as the boy's physical form is reduced to nothing but ash.
The boy stands in silent judgment. A ghostly voice asks what the boy has done to him. He asks what the boy did down. Solitary silence returns to the site.
The credit faction gathers a Besk.
Fear grips the faces of bikers. The boss stares with cold intensity.
Twilight deepens over the skeletal structure.
Narration notes that the victim was already in the final stages of a transformation as Young-hoo approaches the scene.
Ash and scorched metal Levang.
Terror washes over the boss's face.
Segun's eyes reflect cold, unwavering purpose.
The scarred man in the vision notes that there are indeed times when a person must be killed. Segun stands alone under the dying light, reflecting on how they could have been simple friends sharing a drink. A large crowd gathers at a busy city crosswalk under the night sky.
A waitress approaches a customer who asks about ordering as she introduces herself. The blonde man sitting on the sofa assures the waitress she can speak in Korean.
The man reveals a fanged smile as he claims to understand everything perfectly.
The waitress asks for his order, and the customer requests a serving of champagne.
A younger blonde boy rushes into the cafe calling for his master, startling the waitress.
The blonde man looks at the newcomer and asks Bill what has happened. The young boy stands in a formal suit while catching his breath. Bill leads the man outside while explaining that a girl has suddenly collapsed nearby. They find a girl in a hospital gown slumped against the side of a red sports car. The dark-haired girl looks sickly and exhausted as she leans against the vehicle. The master calls out to Bill, who responds with a silent, questioning glance.
A red sports car speeds down a highway illuminated by blue streetlights.
Bill stares out the window from the passenger seat with a contemplative look.
The boy addresses his master, who offers a brief response while focused on driving.
Bill looks at the blonde man and asks if he is certain about his current course of action.
Bill suggests the girl is just a stranger they should turn over to the police. The master says fate binds the world and he values that connection very highly. He reminds Wilhelm of their own meeting, and the boy reluctantly admits the man is right. Bill admits he doesn't understand his master, who laughs about fate's lack of sense.
The man declares himself a romantic as the title identifies him as a true demon phantom.
A massive skyscraper towers over the city lights during the peep May.
The master stands in a luxurious penthouse overlooking the sprawling, glowing scapescape. The blonde man swirls a glass of red liquid as someone calls out for him. Bill reports that the girl was taken to the medical center and the master praises her. Bill asks why the man is so heavily invested in the girl they count.
The master takes a sip and repeats his claim of being a romantic.
He stands in a light robe within the lavishly decorated apartment. Bill sits down and notes there is no romance in simply running away from work.
Bill advises him to finish his tasks before chasing romance with flowers or anything else.
The master muses that bringing flowers might actually be a good idea. The man turns and asks Bill if he has finished looking into the girl's background.
Bill looks at him with a serious expression and confirms that he has the information.
Bill identifies the girl as Yoon Mi-hae and mentions she was recently in the news. The master notes she wasn't an ordinary lady after hearing about her past.
A phone shows a news headline about 6 high school girls and a criminal charge.
Bill recounts that several students were booked without detention for an assault. He explains they assaulted the victim repeatedly for being disobedient and arrogant. The master says the article makes blood boil while observing the girl's extreme fatigue.
The man relaxes back into his robe on the sofa.
Bill mentions a video from Sylvester arrived while mocking his master for avoiding work. The master laments that his pursuer is still active and interfering with his visit. He complains about frozen accounts and excommunication while Bill agrees with the harsh facts. Bill asks if he will watch the new footage, and the master confirms the necessity. The blonde man smirks and notes he was just told to get back to work. The video shows a bloodied man in a black suit collapsed on a sidewalk. A silver-haired man with glowing blue eyes appears on the recorded footage. CCTV footage captures the silver-haired figure standing over his wounded and bleeding victim.
The master watches the screen as the man on the video delivers a final religious rite.
The wounded man on the screen begs for mercy as he lies in a pool of blood. A silver-haired figure watches from the shadows beyond a wire fence. Bill asks if the man on the screen is currently begging for mercy.
The blonde boy notes that the victim survives by filling his veins with the blood of others.
Bill asks if his master is actually being serious right now. Sylvester holds a glass of red liquid while Bill questions his claim of being a living being.
The blonde man commands the boy to cry as he holds out a glass.
Sylvester tells Bill to cry and prove his purity.
CCTV footage shows the silver-haired man holding a blade to a vampire's turret.
A close-up reveals the silver-haired man's glowing blue hair.
A voice notes that the person on screen is unable to cry.
Sylvester tilts his glass, letting the dark red liquid skull.
The blonde man exposes his fangs and declares that the victim has reached his lemur.
The silver-haired man on screen prepares to strike with his glowing blade. Red liquid splashes as the execution on the screen continues. A sudden splash of red accompanies the strike on the monitor.
Sylvester watches the wine pour down as he reflects on his team.
The silver-haired man looks down with a cold and distant expression.
CCTV captures the silver-haired killer standing over a bloodied and fallen body.
A sudden sharp crackle sounds as static fills the penthouse screen while the master and Bill watch.
Sylvester remarks that things are still the same as they have ever been.
Red liquid flows as someone observes that his master's repertoire never changes.
A voice calls Sylvester a hopeless poet.
The master and Bill stare at a large window smeared with streaks of blood. The scene shifts to a grim and dimly lit public restroom.
Narration notes that 2 days have passed for the green-haired boy. Segun reflects on how long it has been since he last ate anything.
A sudden, sharp splash sounds as the boy grips the porcelain while struggling with nausea. A vision of his burning victim returns as he claims he had no other choice.
A sudden, loud retch sounds as Segun vomits into the toilet. The scarred man in the vision questions Segun's right to judge who deserves to die.
The visionary mentor tells him not to be so foolish and laugh.
Segun asks what other choice he was supposed to have in the dark balls. Steam rises from a bowl of ramen and a triangle gimbap on a wooden table. Segun sits alone outside a convenience store under a purple umbrella.
The green-haired boy wonders why the crowd is in such a hurry. He continues to watch the busy street until a girl crouches before him and calls out.
The pink-haired girl asks if he has heard of his resemblance to Kirpa Payne.
Segun admits this is a unique observation compared to the usual questions he receives.
A man yells for Jin Yumi while she warns him to stop groping her. Several aggressive men surround the table and demand a proper answer.
The lead man with piercings mocks Segun's appearance and calls him a clown.
A sudden, sharp drag sounds as Segun stands to leave Ihiria.
A sudden, low thud sounds repeatedly as the group of men follows the green-haired boy.
A sudden, low thud sounds repeatedly as Segun attempts to walk away from the group.
The man with facial piercings curses the boy under his path.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as the thug grabs Segun's shoulder and demands to know where he's going.
A sudden, sharp crack sounds as Segun delivers a powerful punch to the man's face. A sudden, heavy thud sounds as the man collapses into the street in a spray of blood. Jinyumi watches the scene with a sudden, blushing smile. A sudden, fast thump sounds repeatedly as the girl's heart races while she stares in admiration. The teal-haired man looms over a fallen man in a white jacket and offers a cold apology.
He explains that he mistook the man for a bug that was crawling on him.
The man in the white jacket stares at the blood dripping from his nose in shock.
The hunter offers another cold apology while he slowly walks away. The fallen man yells out in a rage, asking if the hunter has a death wish. The group demands that he stops as they hurl insults at his back. They threaten to kill him on the spot if he takes another step. The teal-haired man pauses as he questions the weight of a person's life. He turns his head back with a chilling and intense glare. He questions the nature of people like the thugs and their hollow threats. A close-up shows a hand holding a single wireless earbud.
A pink-haired girl calmly puts the earbud in while staring at her phone. Her screen shows a music player that she's about to apnea. Lyrics from a song appear as the girl focuses on her music.
A leg lunges forward to deliver a powerful blurring kick toward the hunter. The teal-haired man catches the thug's leg and prepares to retaliate. He brutally slams the attacker face first into the pavement with a heavy impact. Overhead view of the alley as the hunter engages the entire group of thugs. He deftly blocks a punch from a man in a black tacker. A heavy fist connects with the thug's face as the music continues to play. The impact sends the man reeling back into the shadows.
The hunter delivers a high kick that sends another attacker tumbling down the stairs.
He ruthlessly stabs a man in a brown coat with a butterfly knife. The victim lets out a pained cry as blood sprays from his face.
The hunter moves with lethal efficiency toward his next target.
He secures a bloody grip on a man's head and prepares a finishing blow.
The teal-haired man stares down his prey with a cold, glowing eye. He continues his relentless assault as more bodies fall in the dark alley. The hunter maintains his focus while the thugs are systematically neutralized.
A man screams in agony as a powerful blow crushes his face.
The hunter expertly manipulates his butterfly knife as he closes in on the leader. He intercepts a desperate attack and prepares to end the confrontation.
Tears well up in the victim's eye as he realizes the hunter's overwhelming power.
The teal-haired man ruthlessly stabs his butterfly knife through the leader's mouth. A spray of blood erupts as the blade pierces through the back of the man's neck.
The hunter coldly commands his broken opponent to keep fighting.
He mockingly asks if the man was truly prepared to take a human life.
A heavy kick slams into the fallen man's head as the hunter demands more effort.
He delivers a crushing blow that sends blood flying across the pavement.
The man's face is completely mangled and covered in gore. The hunter screams for the man to do something as he continues the beating.
The hunter commands his broken opponent to keep going as he looms over him.
He mockingly asks if the man was truly prepared to take a human life.
A heavy kick slams into the fallen man's head as the hunter demands more effort.
He delivers a crushing blow that sends blood flying across the pavement.
The man's face is completely mangled and covered in gore from the assault.
The hunter screams for the man to do something as he continues the beating.
Bodies lie scattered across the bloody alleyway under the cold streetlights.
The teal-haired man stands over the broken leader and questions his resolve.
He demands the man stand and fight while the girl watches with her music.
Segun glances back with a bloody wound. Fatigue shadows the boy's weary face.
Jin Yumi watches with wide, startled eyes.
Segun collapses within the dark alley. Blood splatters as he reaches out.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as the girl stands amidst the fallen thugs. Yumi stands frozen over the carnage.
Bodies litter the cobblestone alleyway.
Sunlight hits the Arjuna Cafe storefront.
A woman mops the cafe floor.
The black-haired woman sighs and considers that she really should hire a part-timer or someone to help her.
A sudden low rumble sounds as the woman looks out the window.
A sleek black supercar pulls up.
A sudden cheerful ding sounds as the woman opens the door with a bright smile. The silver-haired man leans against his car and firmly tells her not to call him by that name.
Looking through the window, the woman asks why he has returned so much earlier than originally planned.
The silver-haired man claims he came back simply because he has a fondness for Dostoevsky.
Segun lies wounded on the back.
A sudden, sharp thud sounds as Segun bolts upright in the dim room. Segun stares intensely while wondering exactly when he managed to lose consciousness.
Music posters cover the bedroom walls. Segun looks around the unfamiliar room and wonders where he is as a girl sleeps nearby.
Looking at the cluttered room, the boy thinks to himself that the place is a total pigsty.
Segun looks at his bandaged chest and asks if she really considers using tissues as a form of first aid.
The pink-haired girl stirs and asks if he is finally awake, to which he gives a brief confirmation.
Yumi nervously apologizes and frantically reminds him that he had been stabbed with a knife.
As he starts to leave, the girl asks if he is actually okay with just walking out in his condition. Yumi mentions a mysterious designation called Lambda 171.
The girl leans in and asks if he wants to come with her, leaving Segun visibly confused.
She moves closer and asks if he isn't planning on touching her.
Yumi blushes slightly while admitting that she would actually be fine with him touching her.
Segun stares at her in disbelief.
Segun stands up abruptly and asks the girl if she is currently high on glue or something similar. Shock and confusion cross Yumi's face.
The girl looks down at her hands and offers a quiet, dejected apology.
Segun watches her with silent intensity. Segun rubs his face and explains he's been on edge from hunger while apologizing for wrecking the men he assumed were her boyfriends.
He looks at her expectantly. Yumi kneels on the bed and begs him to let her come along with him.
Hot ramen sits on a table.
The pair eats inside a store.
A sudden, soft munch sounds as Yumi stuffs her face with a triangle gimbap.
Segun watches her eat and dryly notes that she certainly eats well using his money.
Yumi looks at him and clarifies that those men were definitely not her boyfriends.
She continues eating while explaining she only followed him because she was terrified of getting lost on her own.
Segun leans in and asks her if he really looks like a little kid to her.
The boy turns away in silence.
Pedestrians pass by the store window.
Yumi stares ahead with a somber expression. Watching her from the side, Segun wonders if the girl is currently in the same difficult boat as him.
Segun sits despondently in a convenience store over a bowl of ramen.
A sudden soft voice interrupts the boy's quiet meal.
Jin Yumi introduces herself to him with a bright, blushing smile.
The pair sits together in the glow of the store window.
A massive hospital complex looms tall under the bright blue sky.
Someone screams in fury about a child's escape from the facility.
Mihia stands silently at a doorway in her hospital gown.
Her father rages at the doctors as staff try to restrain him.
Lo Gibson arrives at the scene while holding a bouquet of roses.
The blonde man observes the surrounding chaos with a cold, distant expression.
He offers a polite apology for his sudden intrusion into the argument.
A sudden sharp snap sounds as the man raises his hand.
The father falls into a sudden psychedelic daze as the roses bloom. The surrounding medical staff are instantly paralyzed by a colorful, hypnotic energy.
A heavy trance grips everyone within the hospital hallway as time stops.
Mi-hee watches the strange, magical display unfold with a blank expression.
Narration reveals the girl has been confined in the hospital for a year.
A sudden quick rustle sounds as Mi-hee grips her gown in weakness.
Hope remains within her despite the exhaustion of her failing spirit.
She stands frozen in her simple hospital slippers amidst the paralyzed crowd. Lo Gibson apologizes for previously returning her to such a miserable place.
He admits his regret for abandoning her in the hospital until now.
He offers her a choice to leave the facility with him. The blonde man smirks and declares he is currently kidnapping her.
Mi-hee stares intently at the vibrant red roses he offered.
Traffic crawls across the city bridge during the clear, sunny day. Lo Gibson orders a full wardrobe of women's clothing over the phone.
Mi-hee finds a moment of peace smelling the flowers while driving.
The master mocks his subordinate's attempt at humor while navigating the traffic.
Lo Gibson considers a new look for Wilhelm if he remains compliant.
A sudden, loud bang sounds against the car window from nowhere.
Glass shatters as a flurry of high-caliber bullets strikes the vehicle.
Lo Gibson shields the girl as the lethal attack continues through the glass.
A blue glow flashes menacingly within his narrowed, focused eye.
6 bullet holes pierce the back of the master's white coat.
The car's rear window is completely blown out by the precision fire.
A hidden sniper tracks the red car through a high-powered scope.
The targeted vehicle remains centered within the lethal crosshairs on the bridge.
A sudden metallic click sounds from the sniper's lens as they aim.
The pursuer stands victoriously upon the skyscraper's edge with a massive rifle.
The silver-haired figure rests the weapon on a shoulder while watching the car.
The sniper asks if the sudden greeting was sufficiently bold for the master.
An announcement for recruitment appears with several different characters shown.
A luxury skyscraper stands tall against the bright afternoon sky.
The pair arrives at the Grand Hotel entrance in the damaged car.
Attendants bow deeply to welcome the master and his guest inside.
Lo Gibson commands that proper clothing be prepared for the girl immediately.
The group moves into the lobby with the girl still in her gown. A sudden, light clink sounds as flattened bullet slugs drop onto a palm. The assistant notes the silver-haired sniper fired 6 precise shots directly at the girl. The dark-haired man reflects on the lethal potential of silver bullets. Lo Gibson notes that even particles of splattered blood could turn the girl into a vampire. The blonde man mockingly praises Sylvester for developing a gentleman's touch. A black dirt bike 6 parked.
Sagoon realizes the motorcycle has reached its mechanical limit and finds its survival miraculous.
He admits it is greedy to expect the bike to stay functional after such abuse.
The green-haired boy laments his inability to repair or replace the damaged vehicle.
He opens his completely empty wallet.
Sagoon admits he has her
The bike rests in the darkness.
Sagan complains about the dealer's refusal to trade with minors while desperate to sell vampire blood.
Yumi spots him and excitedly shouts a famous musician's name.
The girl leans in very close.
A sudden soft flump sounds as Yumi complains that her legs have gone numb.
The pink-haired girl asks where the green-haired boy is heading next.
Sagun questions her strangely familiar attitude as if they have already traveled together.
Sagoon refuses to say where he lives and asks about her friends.
Yumi explains that her friends have either gone home or to see their boyfriends.
Sagoon tells the girl to go home and asks if her parents are currently worried.
The pink-haired girl quietly admits that she has no parents.
Yumi reveals she is an orphan.
Sagoon watches her with silent intensity.
They ride together through the sea. Yumi leans on the boy's pack. Narration identifies her as a delinquent.
A photo of her friends appears.
Narration describes her past with an oppressive and authoritarian father.
Her father cruelly demands to know why she won't simply die.
Yumi admits that dying would be better than staying in her current misery.
She screams for him to drop dead as a final rebellion against being treated like property.
A wrecked car burned for an pavement. Memorial portraits honor the deceased parents.
Yumi sits before the funeral altar.
Narration reflects on the emptiness of her life following the tragic loss.
She explains her downward spiral into a self-destructive frenzy to escape the pain.
Sagan acknowledges his inability to comfort her or take responsibility for her life.
He notes that her chaotic story eventually began to make sense after repeated tellings.
Sagoon considers her tragic life story. The girl asks him if he wants to stay with her.
Sagoon calls the pink-haired girl insane.
A sudden loud roar sounds as the girl screams in excitement. A sudden loud roar sounds as the motorcycle speeds down the road. The night street stands empty now. A sudden light splash sounds as the motorcycle comes to a halt.
Sagoon tells the girl they have arrived and prompts her to go inside.
Yumi asks where he is going, to which Sagoon confirms he is also heading home.
The pink-haired girl calls out suddenly.
Yumi asks when she will be able to see him again.
Sagoon suggests meeting again at the convenience store. Sagoon walks away while suggesting they could have breakfast together again. He grips the motorcycle handlebars.
A sputtering engine sound echoes as Segun rides through the night.
Segun curses his crappy bike and worries riding his memento this way will turn him into a pile of ashes. He sighs heavily and realizes he needs to find a way to make money.
Determination burns within the boy's single visible eye. Segun arrives at his destination on his worn motorcycle next to a luxury car.
A light clink sounds as Segun opens the door to a building named Arjana.
He enters the establishment with a weary and serious expression. Sylvester turns around as someone calls his name.
The high-end establishment stands illuminated against the night sky.
Segun asks the silver-haired man when he arrived in Korea, and Sylvester replies it was not long ago.
Segun observes the paperwork and notes that Sylvester actually takes on requests.
A tense silence fills the room.
Sylvester slams the documents down while cursing under his breath.
The silver-haired man's blue eyes narrow with intense focus.
Narration notes that Sagan has gotten cocky during their time apart. Sylvester suggests that Segun has either become arrogant or simply decided he wants to die.
Segun remains silent and looks away. Sylvester asks if the boy has someone he knows in the area.
Sylvester looks down at the table as Segun clenches his fist in frustration. A woman calmly drinks tea while a photo of high school girls sits nearby.
A mysterious voice notes that this time the business partner will be an incorrigible brat.
Rain pours down on the dark city streets and industrial buildings.
A figure with glowing eyes remarks on seeing the brat from Phantasmagoria, a vampire clan led by Phantom.
A group of intimidating men in suits gathers for a meeting.
A man with reddish-brown hair and red eyes notes the arrival of the Jeggio party.
Phantom arrives with a suitcase and remarks that the man almost looks human.
The red-haired man calls the boy a pampered puppy, but Phantom retorts that punks working with gangsters have no right to speak of his master.
Phantom's eyes glow blue as he mocks the group for no longer having a master to follow.
A vampire snaps in anger about their master's death by a demon hunter, but the red-haired man silences him.
The leader notes that the current conversation is going off track. The man in sunglasses demands that Phantom state his business and leave.
A sharp clack sounds as the blonde boy kicks the silver suitcase.
The suitcase slides across the floor toward the group of men.
The red-haired man asks if he is expected to just walk away after the demon hunter killed their master.
He laughs and claims the amount offered is far too small for such a dangerous target. Phantom tells the group not to get the wrong idea.
A mysterious voice clarifies that the money is not meant for helping them get revenge. The red-haired man notes that the Esquire is not in the country and asks why the boy is there.
Phantom reaches into his coat and explains he is after someone much weaker.
A photo is slid across the table for the group to see.
The red-haired man picks up the image to inspect the target.
He identifies the target as Sylvester's apprentice and decides his group is more than enough for the job.
The leader asks for the target's current location.
Phantom looks down from above and identifies the location as Guanacu, Seoul.
The red-haired man calls the client pathetic and tells his men they must earn their pay. The subordinates gather around to look at the photo of the boy.
The large, muscular man shouts in fury upon recognizing the target.
The man in the suit asks if he knows the boy, and the muscle-bound man confirms he does.
The large man confirms the target is the high school punk who previously visited the club, prompting a shocked reaction from the others.
The blonde boy confidently predicts that the job will be finished very quickly.
The red-haired man smirks in agreement. He claims they will earn the money in no time.
Rain pours over the city skyscraper where the master and girls stand.
The dark-haired girl asks if he is rich, and the blonde man admits he is undeniably wealthy.
Wilhelm questions why the man has developed such a sudden interest in her.
Lo Gibson describes their connection as a kinship of blood before the girl asks if he will truly grant her every request.
He promises to fulfill any wish that remains within the realm of possibility.
The dark-haired girl stares out the rainy cityscape. Wilhelm states she wants to go where her lost loved ones are, causing the blonde man's eyes to glow blue. They stand together in silence as the rain beats against the window.
Lo Gibson speaks of a haunting presence.
The man stands still as the conversation continues. Narration explains that outliving an allotted lifespan and clinging to existence leads to hearing a specific sound.
It is a voice that the living are never meant to hear.
Blood stains an ear as whispers of death begin to echo.
The voice clearly and vividly urges the listener toward destruction and death.
The blonde man calls this a chronic condition associated with possessing a body like his.
Lo Gibson admits that he values personal endurance far more than simple pleasure.
Wilhelm watches him with a stoic expression.
The girl questions the concept of endurance. He explains it as the strength to bear pain and continue living, claiming that having something to protect makes hell itself taste sweet. Wilhelm asks if he truly believes his own words.
Lo Gibson insists he does, but promises not to force his values on her, suggesting that life will eventually offer good things. The girl asks if those good things ever actually existed for him, leaving the man in silent thought.
Wilhelm inwardly dismisses his claims as total lies.
She reflects on how there were once days when that lie actually seemed believable. The girl decides that none of it matters anymore.
Lo Gibson calls her lack of attachment to life dreadful. He decides that for the one who will become the youngest of his bloodline, a specific gift is required. The master concludes that gifting her revenge doesn't sound like a bad idea.
A sudden, blurred movement occurs as he reaches out.
Wilhelm stares blankly as she is grabbed.
The two stand close together in the darkened room.
Lo Gibson leans in and bites the girl's neck to pass on his blood.
Phantom enters to report on the Jekio party but stops abruptly in horror at the scene.
The blonde boy's eyes widen in absolute shock.
Phantom screams for his master as Lo Gibson holds the unconscious girl.
The blonde man's eyes glow blue as he tells the boy to hurry over before he changes his mind.
Segun races through the heavy rain on his motorcycle with a grim expression.
The green-haired boy arrives at the establishment and stands before the silver-haired man.
As hands wash a cup, narration notes that no matter how long the master has lived, he has rotted his body on wealth and power.
Segun reflects on how the man talks as if he is actually going to save humanity.
The boy concludes that the man is certainly no god.
Segun asks the silver-haired man what he is supposed to be as a man of the cloth.
Sylvester remains silent with his back turned.
The silver-haired man turns with glowing blue eyes and a focused gaze. A sudden, sharp motion from his hand breaks the silence.
Seguin looks down in silent contemplation as the meeting continues. A quick swish sounds out as Han Segun turns to walk away from the table.
The silver-haired man calls out Han Segun's name to get his attention.
A sharp talk sounds as the hunter catches an object thrown his way. He opens his hand to reveal a glowing pink and blue medicinal capsule.
The man explains that the woman taken by the king of vampires is the one his target hates most.
Han Segun clenches his fist tightly as a bright light illuminates his intense expression. A final warning appears, telling him not to do anything foolish. A loud vroom sounds as he grips the throttle of his motorcycle in the rain.
The hunter speeds down the dark highway amidst the heavy storm.
A rhythmic thump sounds as a bright red light pulses from his chest.
He leans forward and focuses his gaze on the road ad.
Han Segun looks up and questions if the massive creature above him is a bat. He watches the red-winged beast fly through the pouring rain.
A monstrous wolf with glowing red eyes lunges at him with a sudden snap. A low growl sounds as the hunter reacts to the massive shadow looming over him. The creature reveals its horrific face and bared fangs as it attacks.
A powerful vroom sounds as he guns the engine to escape the beast.
A sharp screech sounds as the motorcycle skids across the wet pavement.
Han Segun narrows his eyes and begins to ask a question about his surroundings.
The braided vampire woman wonders if he is the child that Jeong mentioned.
She confirms his identity to her massive companion while the man looms behind her. The giant blue-skinned vampire steers down at the hunter with glowing red eyes.
A wet splash sounds as the group stands on the rain-slick road.
Han Segun's eyes flare with a brilliant and lethal blue light.
He stands his ground against the two powerful vampires.
The woman questions how he obtained a real gun and mocks his weaponry.
A loud vroom sounds as she asks if gun ownership is even legal in Korea.
The hunter pops a wheelie and drives the motorcycle directly at the woman.
A violent crash sounds as the vehicle impacts the vampire's position. A dull thud sounds as she effortlessly stops the spinning tire with one hand.
A metallic click sounds as Han Segun aims his pistol at point-blank range.
A deafening boom sounds as he fires a shot directly into the woman's face. The vampire woman yells that he nearly frightened her with the sudden attack.
A quick whoosh sounds as the motorcycle is sent flipping through the air.
Heavy raindrops create a rhythmic splash on the empty asphalt.
The massive vampire watches the bike tumble through the storm. A heavy thud sounds as Han Segun lands in a crouch and slides.
A sudden boom echoes as he glares through the rain with intense resolve. The woman touches a scratch on her cheek and mutters a bitter curse. She wipes away a drop of blood and notes that the brat has some skills.
The giant vampire tells her she was the one unable to finish the job.
A soft top sounds as the hunter stands alone in the Dalpware.
He calculates that he has fired 3 shots from the Tokarev and 5 from the Type 54.
A sharp click sounds as he notes that even unloading everything won't be enough. A message appears declaring that there is no way for him to win.
A wet squish sounds as the woman's neck begins to gruesomely mutate.
A horrific rip sounds as massive toothy appendages burst from the woman's body.
She smiles and decides she might as well replenish the blood she just lost.
A sharp splash sounds as Han Segun snarls and prepares to fight. He charges forward while screaming for the monsters to get out of his way. Segun aims at the winged vampires.
He rapidly fires his twin pistols.
The enemies easily dodges bullets.
The vampire dismisses the silver-coated rounds. He claims the boy is doomed.
A sudden sharp swish sounds. Segun is thrown back by an impact.
Determination glows in Segun's blue eyes.
He charges past his grounded enemies. 2 vampires watch his desperate advance.
Segun weaves through the rainy street.
A vampire blocks him and asks where he's going.
A light splash sounds from his boots.
Segun strikes out at the monster.
He prepares to fire once again.
Segun loses his grip on Spen.
He spins to face his pursuer.
A vampire looms in the darkness.
A sudden loud bang sounds nearby.
The enemy levels a gun at him. Thorny tendrils bind Segun's shooting on.
Segun groans as the vines tighten.
He is slammed against the pavement.
A vampire glares with red eyes.
Sagoon struggles against the spiked bonds.
The vampire mocks his pointless resistance.
A figure moves through the rain. The female vampire mocks his efforts.
Sagoon is battered against the bird.
He lies defeated in the storm. The vampires stand over their prey.
The woman scoffs with a tesk.
Sagoon remembers Yumi's bright, happy smile.
He recalls her sitting alone nearby.
Her laughter fills his fading memories.
Sagoon gasps while struggling to breathe.
He crawls forward through the ring.
A sudden sharp snap sounds out.
Sagoon is dragged back across asphalt.
The predators watch their prey struggle. The woman prepares to finish him.
She hungrily declares it is mealtime.
A sudden wet crack sounds up. Blood sprays as she is shot. The male vampire demands a culprit.
A silenced pistol is help stay.
Sylvester mocks the boy for fighting unprepared.
He asks if he was taught poorly.
The vampire lashes out at Sylvester.
Sylvester's blue eyes glow with fury.
A blinding, energetic flash cuts through the rain.
Sylvester delivers a massive arcing slash with his blade.
The vampire screams in agony as he is struck.
Sylvester readies his heavy black shotgun with a metallic click.
He fires a brutal, point-blank blast into his enemy.
A violent spray of blood erupts into the strong. The force of the impact throws the vampire back. He groans in pain while bleeding on the pavement.
The monster leaps desperately over the guardrail to escape.
Sylvester watches the fleeing prey with glowing blue eyes.
Sagoon sits exhausted on the wet asphalt nearby.
Sagoon vows to hunt down the escaping monster.
Sylvester tells him to finish the job in part.
Sagoon bows his head in somber, silent agreement.
Rain drips off the cold barrel of the gun.
A pistol is held against a fallen enemy's hat.
Sagoon notes the target's blood feels uniquely powerful.
He remains hunched over in the pearl ring. Sagoon reflects on the immense strength of his opponent.
A hand grips a sword hilt with a spash.
Utility poles stand tall against the dark, rainy sky. A bruised face lies still in a deep piddle.
Sagoon stands among the many defeated, unconscious men.
He recalls a horrific memory of a mangled corpse.
A dark silhouette looms in the rain-slicked alley.
Sagoon realizes he always possessed the necessary weapons.
He remembers his training while taking a glowing pill. A psychedelic surge of energy explodes around the boy.
A single glowing blue eye focuses with intense power.
Sagoon claims he is no longer the same person.
Rain streaks across his face as he stares ahead. A boot splashes down into a dark, wet puddle.
He walks past several more defeated, bloody enemies.
Sagoon enters a dark, cluttered building with his sword.
His glowing blue eyes widen in sudden, absolute shock.
He stares at a horrific sight within the room.
Tears and rain stream down the young hunter's face.
A blood-soaked hand hangs limply from a mattress.
A girl lies dead, blood flowing from her eyes.
Sagoon stands paralyzed with grief in the messy room.
A sword falls with a sharp, metallic ting.
Narration recounts the biblical story of human creation.
It describes death as a return to the beginning.
Sagoon realizes that he already knew the tragic truth. He tearfully completes a final rite for the fallen.
Blood splatters as the title Good Afternoon appears.
The wounded vampire reacts with total bewildered confusion.
A tall, long-haired figure looms with a glowing blade.
Grids of blue light slash the vampire into pieces.
Sylvester remains silent as blood rains over the scene.
Diogyeon complains that excessive damage makes it impossible to draw blood from enemies.
Sylvester dismisses the need for immediate explanations as the rain falls.
Sylvester orders the muscular hunter to quickly retrieve the young boy.
The silver-haired man warns that they are being watched by many.
Dion worries that the king of vampires is directly involved.
The muscular man stands silently in the orange-tinted rain.
A blood-stained bag is carried toward a waiting vehicle.
Diogyeon asks the green-haired boy if he is alright.
Rain falls over Sagoon's head in the red darkness.
Sagoon looks up with glowing blue eyes and requests a ride.
Fire sirens wail loudly as trucks arrive at the scene.
Firefighters rush out into the storm as a quick tap sounds.
An orange glow illuminates a burning building in the distance.
Sylvester stands stoically amidst the blue-tinted downpour.
He watches from a balcony as cats and birds gather. Glowing-eyed cats hiss and meow in the cool rain.
A cat curiously inspects spent bullet shell casings on the ground.
Sylvester remains deep in thought at the rainy park.
Warm light spills from the windows of the Arjuna restaurant.
A sleek black sports car sits parked along the curb.
The intricate wheel of a high-end car reflects the streetlights.
A vibrant red supercar joins the black one on the street.
Lo Gibson mocks Sylvester's sudden and uninvited appearance at his table.
The blonde man questions the hunter's sudden change of heart.
Lo Gibson dismisses Sylvester and suggests he bother a true demon instead.
Sylvester demands an answer while the Vampire King suggests a conversation.
Lo Gibson casually notes that they both have an eternity for discussion.
Sylvester insults the vampire for surviving by stealing time from others.
Sylvester sharply orders the blonde man to start cocking.
Sylvester's blue eyes glow as he demands the real reason for the visit.
Lo Gibson remains composed and silent across the table.
He warns the hunter against getting on the bad side of Tetrax.
Sylvester mocks the idea of a monster showing concern for a hunter.
Lo Gibson clarifies that his words are a warning, not worry.
Sylvester places a handgun on the table and offers a challenge.
The silver-haired man is fully prepared to settle their dispute immediately.
Tension peaks as they face off in the quiet restaurant.
Lo Gibson reminds him that brute force is no longer the law.
He claims that acting with brutality would offend his personal aesthetics.
The blonde man declares his status as king over both species.
Lo Gibson mentions that today marks a very significant occasion.
He reveals he is gifting revenge to his newest bloodline descendant. Sylvester listens in grim silence as the meeting reaches its end.
The blonde man warns his little stalker not to push too far.
Lo Gibson prepares to depart, having delivered his message.
Fury glimmers in Sylvester's glowing blue eye. The blonde man offers a final, polite thanks for the coughing.
Sylvester regrets his own concern as he holds a shell casing.
He scolds the arriving hunters for leaving evidence behind.
Segun stares ahead with a hollow, glowing gaze through the ring.
Sylvester asks a defeated Han Segun if he failed to achieve his goals.
Sylvester stares intently as Han Segun looks up in confusion.
Han Segun asks a strange question about his own appearance.
Sylvester dismisses the nonsense as Han Segun breaks into hysterical laughter.
The hunter's laughter echoes through the pouring rain. Han Segun buries his face in his hands as the rain falls.
He sits alone on the bench, overcome by despair.
The group overlooks the city as fires burn in the distance. Bright neon signs illuminate the dark city street.
A terrified man reaches out as a shadow looms over him.
A skeletal beast with horns roars toward the night sky.
The monster strikes with lethal, shadowy claws. 3 men complain about their boss giving them too much work. Another man disagrees, noting the boss is decent for paying them.
One man stops mid-conversation as a sudden crunching sounds out.
He stares into the dark alley and asks about the noise.
The group turns their attention toward the pitch-black alleyway. They spot a massive figure and wonder if it is eating something.
A sudden, sharp swish sounds as the beast looks up.
The men panic and wonder if they can defeat the creature. The skeletal monster stands tall, its red eyes glowing with malice. A wet, disgusting squish sounds as the beast bared its fangs.
The creature lunges with blinding speed toward the terrified men.
A violent, bone-crushing impact shatters the silence of the alley.
A wet, heavy squish sounds as a bloody claw clenches.
The survivors stare in horror as blood sprays across the walls. A mangled, blood-soaked body lies abandoned in the darkness.
The beast towers over the men as they retreat in fear.
The monster growls that its power is growing even greater. A street lamp glows like a pale moon against the dark sky. A narration explains that a savage hunger suddenly took hold. The beast recalls its sense of self beginning to fade away.
It describes the hunger as a physical force tearing at its throat.
The monster admits to devouring countless corpses while unconscious.
The dark narrative confirms that the insatiable hunger never stops. Glowing red eyes burn with an eternal cursed fire.
The scene shifts to a quiet city building at night.
A man in a red tracksuit jogs while panting Emily.
A sudden, heavy thump sounds as something lands before him.
The jogger gasps as he sees a monster reflected in his glasses.
The skeletal beast leaps through the air with predatory grace.
A dark silhouette descends upon its next unsuspecting victim.
A quick, sharp swish sounds as the beast lands in a crouch.
The creature sprints away into the shadows of the park.
A pained, gurgling cry sounds as the beast slaughters more people. Static-filled footage captures the monster's brutal, distorted rampage.
A sharp click sounds as a witness tries to photograph the beast.
The witness watches from the safety of his apartment window.
The monster's skeletal head turns, its red eyes piercing the dark.
A final, lethal strike sends blood splattering across the pavement.
The grotesque monster bellows with an insatiable hunger.
A quiet warehouse sits isolated in the orange glow of sunset.
The muscular man questions why the lights are off and asks if the shop is closed.
The older man explains that business is slow without supply and notes the long absence of his partners.
The muscular man remains silent as he absorbs the news.
A hand flips a switch with a sharp click sounding out.
The warehouse lights flicker on with a series of heavy clangs.
Rows of electronic medical equipment begin to hum with a soft whir.
A small television on a wooden crate activates with a sudden zip.
The news reports a violent late-night incident as the muscular man asks for a bag.
The broadcast features a witness looking completely petrified by the events. Narration describes a monster emerging from a manhole to attack civilians.
A police official delivers a formal statement regarding the seemingly motiveless slaughter.
Pixelated footage shows the creature as witnesses insist it was not human.
The news speculates on the assailant's state of mind while showing a blurred figure.
The muscular man reacts with grim realization at the mention of a corrupted being.
Narration recounts the secret war between vampire hunters and monsters in city alleys. He observes that the rule of keeping their world hidden has been destroyed. The older man warns that vampires will soon mobilize to deal with the public exposure.
Several bags of fresh blood lie on a table near a large duffel bag. The muscular man anticipates a chaotic conflict returning with a quiet sk.
Night falls over a tranquil park surrounded by city buildings.
A dark silhouette lurks near a vending machine as a faint rustle sounds.
The monster hunches over a fresh victim in the shadows with another rustle.
A heavy projectile strikes the monster with a forceful thud.
Blood sprays against the pavement with a wet smack. The skeletal creature screeches in sudden pain with a loud gawk. The red-haired man complains about the loud racket while walking through the park. The monster's back is covered in large, jagged bone protrusions. The man in the shades notes the noise will wake the neighborhood. The park stands empty and silent under the dim streetlights.
The two men approach the monster from across the grassy clearing.
The monster's red eyes glow as it lets out another piercing god.
The red-haired man tells Yu-Gi-Oh to move forward and take charge.
The blue-haired man unsheaths metallic blades from his arms with a sharp shing.
Yu-Gi-Oh prepares for combat as a sudden snap sounds out. He taunts the beast while inviting it to try its luck.
The creature lunges forward with a desperate lunging gasp.
Yu-Gi-Oh delivers a lightning-fast counter with a lethal slash. The monster screeches in agony as its body is sliced with a ga.
A violent spray of blood erupts after the strike with a wet splat.
Yu-Gi-Oh blocks a massive claw swipe with a ringing clash. Determination burns in the hunter's glowing red eye. The monster continues its relentless assault with a frenzied ga. The force of the exchange sends the creature stumbling backward.
The red-haired man delivers a crushing downward blow with a thunderous bill.
The beast reels from the massive impact with a final ga.
The monster is slammed into the dirt with a heavy thud.
A blinding, energetic explosion finishing the creature sounds with a massive boom. The smoldering remains of the monster smoke in the quiet park with a soft sizzle.
The red-haired man insists he didn't need help and could handle the situation easily, but his companion warns that this is no game and tells him not to let his guard down.
Yu-Gi-Oh notes that this is the moment in comics where enemies typically escape, prompting a sharp warning from the other man not to jinx the situation.
A sudden, sharp bang echoes as a projectile pierces the creature's head just as it attempts to speak.
Yu-Gi-Oh looks on with wide-eyed shock as the battlefield changes. The skeletal monster retaliates by unleashing a hail of bullets from a high-powered firearm. A high-pitched zing rings out as projectiles slice through the night air. Yu-Gi-Oh narrowly avoids the lethal fire as a rapid zip sounds out near his feet. The red-haired man curses the creature's unexpected and reckless tactics. The park stands silent under the violet night sky.
Yu-Gi-Oh lets out a ferocious yell as his internal power surges.
With eyes glowing red, he insults the monster and vows that he will be the one to end its life.
A lifeless body lies in a pool of blood on the pavement.
The massive creature looms over its fallen prey with glowing red eyes. Violence stains the ground near the park's vending machines as the beast stalks the shadows. Inside a warm cafe, the female worker greets a customer with a cheerful smile as a light ding sounds from the door.
She asks the visitor if the motorcycle parked outside is a new ride, and he confirms that it is.
Segun explains that he managed to find a dealer willing to trade the vehicle to a minor.
The woman compliments his sharp new appearance while looking at the green-haired boy.
She notes that he is finally starting to look like a legitimate hunter.
Segun asks about Sylvester's whereabouts and learns that the silver-haired man is currently sleeping upstairs.
A dark handgun barrel is leveled with lethal precision.
Sylvester sits on his bed wearing bunny-patterned pajamas while aiming a pistol at the door.
Segun stares back at him with a mixture of annoyance and disbelief.
Sylvester mockingly welcomes the boy back as he keeps the weapon trained on him.
He warns Segan to stop barging into rooms unannounced to avoid being shot, though Segan points out that his Q pajamas ruin the threat's credibility.
The boy asks for Sylvester's opinion on a high-profile case currently dominating the news cycles.
Sylvester stands up and asks if he means the monster that openly slaughtered people in the park.
He observes that the country's vampire clans clearly lack proper control over society, allowing such chaos to erupt.
The silver-haired man suggests letting the corrupted creature die on its own, but Segan protests that people are being killed in the meantime.
Sylvester's blue eyes glow as he coldly states he is not a private tutor and tells the boy to stop seeking answers from him.
Segun watches silently as the elder hunter turns away.
Sylvester asks what the situation actually signifies to the young boy.
Segun suspects that despite his dismissive words, Sylvester knows there is a deeper meaning behind the incident.
With a weary sigh, Sylvester explains that while the blood of a corrupted being is useless, their presence serves a specific purpose.
He reveals that these monsters are used to draw out hidden executioners.
Narration explains that a creature so consumed by hunger that it exposes its true form serves a tactical goal.
Sylvester notes that the emergence of such a beast indicates that certain individuals are ready to move.
A metallic click sounds as he prepares his weapon, explaining that high-ranking executioners will appear to protect the clan's secrecy.
Menacing silhouettes of powerful vampires wait in the absolute darkness. These high-class vampires were previously considered impossible for hunters to track.
Segun realizes the corrupted monster is being used as bait, and Sylvester confirms this with a grim smile.
He notes that for mercenary hunters, this situation presents a rare and lucrative opportunity. A mobile application titled Vamplic Finder activates with a digital beep, welcoming users to a source for underground intelligence.
Segun asks what the application is supposed to be, but Sylvester tells him to be quiet while he investigates.
A voice through the phone claims to have the most sought-after information regarding the current crisis.
The screen displays a notification about the corrupted creature currently roaming the streets of Seoul.
The app identifies the monster as a former hunter named Jung Jun.
Focus ignites in Sylvester's glowing blue eye. A white van speeds down the highway under the bright morning sun.
Deokyeon drives the vehicle while reflecting on how painful this particular hunt will be for his companion.
A group of men in black suits gathers at a deserted shipping pier for a clandestine meeting.
A heavy duffel bag is opened to reveal stacks of cash as a voice tells the visitor to check it.
The blonde man inspects the contents of the bag while the others wait in silence.
Kenneth Yang, an arms dealer, confirms the amount is correct with a stoic expression.
He opens the back of the transport truck with a sharp, heavy metallic clatter sounding out.
Long shadows stretch across the dark interior of the large supply vehicle. Rows of high-powered assault rifles and tactical equipment line the reinforced walls of the truck.
Close-up details reveal specialized munitions and modern firearms ready for immediate use.
The red-eyed visitor expresses deep admiration for Kenneth's ability to source such weapons in the country.
Kenneth advises his clients to avoid drawing unnecessary attention by killing people in public.
The man dismisses the dealer's concern by noting the inherent purpose of firearms.
Tension erupts as a rifle barrel is suddenly pressed against the back of Kenneth's head.
The vampire mocks Kenneth's hesitation and asks why he deals guns if he is unwilling to kill.
Kenneth remains remarkably composed while warning the man against making a foolish mistake.
He explains that offending a capable arms dealer would turn their new weapons into useless scrap metal. The dealer turns back to question if his red-eyed associates possess any long-term foresight. The hostile man insists the weapon is loaded and demands to know if Kenneth is still messing around. Kenneth coldly insults the man's intelligence while maintaining an unwavering posture.
He points out that killing him would leave the group with no source for future ammunition.
The man finally lowers the rifle while claiming the lethal threat was merely a joke. The leader acknowledges that a truly skilled arms dealer is a cut above the rest. He notes Kenneth's rare ability to stay calm, even with a gun pointed at his head.
The leader adds that a human doing business with vampires is the most surprising part of the arrangement.
Kenneth leans against the open truck door as the confrontation de-escalates. He observes that having a weapon trained on him is an incredibly unpleasant experience.
The blonde man pauses for a moment as if weighing his next move.
He makes a mocking gesture as a quick, sharp snap sounds from his gloved fingers. Kenneth declares that he will be charging an additional 10% for all future transactions. The red-eyed vampire stares back with a mixture of confusion and shock at the sudden price hike.
Kenneth lets out a loud, mocking laugh at the vampire's expense as he stands his ground.
The vampire tells him to keep that price in mind for their next deal as the group prepares to leave.
Kenneth watches the men depart while standing alone by his transport vehicle.
He reflects on the vile reputation of the Hecate lineage while letting out a weary sigh. The dealer admits to himself that the encounter was terrifying enough to take years off his life. Narration speculates that the corrupted hunter transformed while fighting the Jegyo lineage. A lone car speeds down the highway under the night sky as narration mentions a side effect of the moon.
The focus shifts to a spinning tire as narration reveals a bounty has been placed on the monster. Deokyeon's hands grip the steering wheel while reflecting on how the clan see this as a survival issue.
He reveals that the reward for killing the corrupted creature is a staggering 100 million won.
The scarred hunter notes the insanity of vampires offering a bounty to kill one of their own enemies. A news podcast announces breaking information regarding the ongoing crisis. A gruesome image of a mangled and bloodied face is shown on the television screen.
Reports confirm that multiple police officers have been slaughtered near the city's park.
The skeletal monster is seen rampaging across a bridge littered with bodies and wreckage.
Its glowing red eyes burn with a predatory hunger amidst the chaos of the night.
A text box states that the final decision regarding the situation rests with the viewer.
A vampire comments on how the arms dealer is truly going all out with the current conflict.
The beast unleashes a terrifying hollow roar that echoes across the bloody bridge.
Two figures watch the carnage from a high vantage point while questioning if the locals can handle it.
The man warns his companion that even in a smaller country, they must never underestimate their opposition.
The skeletal monster crouches amidst the blood-stained pavement under the bridge.
The long-haired vampire ties his hair back while asking his companion where he is headed.
He prepares for battle as his hands transform into black, lethal claws.
Dozens of black spiders descend from red threads beneath the massive bridge.
Blinding light beams strike the skeletal beast, causing blood to spray.
A violent impact shatters the ground as the monster is thrown backward.
The creature roars in agony as its bloodied face is revealed.
Glowing red threads bind the massive muscular frame of the beast.
The long-haired man asks Echelon to finish the job and wrap things up. Echelon suddenly yells a desperate warning for his ally to get back. Lethal beams of light pierce the vampire's back and explode through his chest.
He collapses to his knees with a pained grunt as smoke rises from his wounds. Echelon demands to know the identity of their mysterious attacker.
A man smirks while noting that the Jegio lineage is running wild without its leader.
A group of hunters with glowing blue eyes emerges from the heavy smoke.
Armed silhouettes surround the bloodied scene while brandishing tactical rifles.
The lead hunter rejoices over the chance to claim a double bounty for both vampires and the corrupted.
The wounded vampire snarls at the hunters, calling them greedy maniacs.
The hunter laughs off the insult, retorting that greed is better than bloodlust.
He opens fire with twin submachine guns after noting the similarities between them. High-powered bullets tear through the air and shred the surrounding pavement.
The vampire attempts to flee in a swirling swarm of black pats.
The lead hunter maintains a relentless and lethal barrage of fire. The wounded vampire retaliates with a hateful curse as he lunges forward.
He strikes with a desperate clawed attack that cuts through the air.
The hunter dodges the strike with a sharp burst of speed.
He mocks the vampire for underestimating the capabilities of humans.
A powerful blow slams into the vampire, sending him reeling back with a thud. The fallen creature screams a final, bitter insult at his attacker. The squad of hunters readies their weapons with a synchronized metallic clatter.
Muzzle flashes illuminate the night sky as they unleash a coordinated volley.
The vampire is riddled with bullets and falls to the ground with a final cry. The lead hunter smiles coldly as blood splatters across his face.
The squad celebrates as they harvest high-grade blood from their fallen prey.
The leader warns his men to be careful with the dangerous Jegio lineage blood.
He pauses for a moment as something unusual catches his attention.
He suddenly orders the squad to leave the fallen corrupted monster alone.
The bald hunter asks why they are choosing not to claim the bounty. The leader explains the monster is the perfect bait to draw in more high-grade vampires. The group stands over the broken skeletal beast as it lies in a pool of blood.
The man requests the tracking device while holding a glowing red capsule.
The beast roars as the hunter approaches with a heavy, sharp weapon.
He slams the tracking device into the monster with a forceful, heavy impact.
The hunter brags about his precision in planting trackers on his targets. He ruthlessly secures the glowing red device deep into the monster's neck. The beast manages a final weak strike that misses its mark. The hunter admires the beast's spirit, noting it still has plenty of fight left. The wounded creature limps away into the darkness as the hunters watch.
The squad prepares to move out and begin the case.
The leader yells for everyone to advance as they track their prey. Glowing blue eyes pierce the dark.
A dark portal issues a challenge. Night fishing starts now. 3 SUVs thunder across the bridge as a loud roar of engines sounds out.
Dyukyeon stares ahead in confusion and simply asks, huh?
He spots a massive transport truck blocking the road and wonders what it could be.
Dark figures stand atop the vehicle.
5 red-eyed men loom over the road.
Dyukyeon realizes the trap and screams for the driver to turn the car around immediately.
The blonde vampire levels a heavy rocket launcher with a menacing look.
He pulls the trigger as a deafening boom echoes through the tunnel.
The lethal projectile streaks toward the vehicles.
A massive explosion shatters the convoy. The red-eyed group readies their pistols. Burning wreckage litters the dark road. A bloody Dyukyeon grits his teeth and mutters a bitter curse.
The vampires advance through the fire, unleashing a relentless volley of gunfire.
Bullets chew through the metal debris.
A vampire tears into a hunter's throat as the victim lets out a pained, gurgling cry.
The blonde man stands over the wreckage and asks what they have found here.
He identifies the survivor as the alchemist's lackey while Dyukyeon pants heavily for a death.
He sips from a blood pack while noting that they came to Korea since no one was showing up in the States. Dyukyeon spits blood and growls a hateful insult at the children of Hecate. The scarred hunter asks when vampires became so weak that they needed to be this heavily armed. The blonde vampire smiles coldly while retorting that he would call it being properly prepared. He explains since the hunter who killed Jokyo is in the country, showing up empty-handed would be a ridiculous move.
He aims his weapon at the fallen hunter and asks if he agrees with that assessment.
A sudden sharp bang sounds out as the vampire's face is bathed in a bright flash of light.
The leader orders his men to search the hunter because he should be carrying a tracking device.
He inspects a handheld GPS unit that displays a blinking green signal on a map.
The man confirms the device uses an FM format and expresses his satisfaction with a simple, good.
He licks blood from his lip and suggests that the group take a little late-night snack break.
A sudden projectile streaks through the air and strikes a vampire in the head with a wet impact.
The man reels back with a pained grunt as blood sprays from a massive, bubbling wound on his temple. The blonde leader stares in shock and demands to know if those were cellular rounds. He spins around as another impact rings out and his companions are thrown back. The vampire grits his fangs in a blind rage. A dark silhouette stands on a ledge under the moon, identified as the true demon hunter.
The silver-haired man looks down with glowing blue eyes and notes there are quite a lot of unwelcome guests today.